Hello there, Lewis Weber here, going over training number 1 for TPS 4x4 24 student version. This is version 423X, and it says here demo. When you receive the software, it probably will say template, and this number may change as some updates occur. The functionality will probably remain the same for quite a while. Most of the changes will be behind the scenes, formulas and so forth. Okay, so let's take a look at the tabs that are available in TPS 4x4 24 students. I'm going to go through these and click on them, and we're going to end up back on the Setup tab. The first tab is going to be the Data Entry tab. This is the only place that you'll be entering data for each of your students. You can see that 2 students have been entered into this demo, and some different behaviors have been entered as well. And I will show you how to do that. We have a home note, which allows you to print a home note if you want, and it will show the behaviors that have occurred increasing and decreasing, and you can also email it, and I will demonstrate that. We have 2 data sheets. This is a data sheet that prints 4 students on 1 page, and it's a data sheet for a single day. The data sheet that I prefer to use is the data sheet number 2, which prints each student on a separate page for 5 days, or gives the student gives you 5 different days of data sheet on 1 page. I think that's the most convenient one to use. We have 3 graphs here that are going to be displaying summaries of count, how many times a student demonstrated a particular behavior. We have 3 graphs that are purple. The tabs are purple that show the percent of academic blocks in which those target behaviors occurred. And we have a graph that's BX per AB, that means behavior per academic block, which will give some very detailed analysis using count and percentage of how your students' behavior is summarized on during a particular number of days that you enter. So you can analyze the number or percent of their behaviors per academic block per a particular time frame. Very handy, and that will become a little bit more clear when I demonstrate it. We have 2 setup pages. The setup by itself just says setup. We'll have the calendar dates, and these dates are the Sarasota County School Board dates. If this software is being used in a different school district, those dates would be entered instead. I've entered 10 academic blocks in, and these are academic blocks for a particular classroom, but you can change these for each student so that you need not have the same academic blocks for all students. This is just a convenient way to enter 10 academic blocks and have them be supplied to all of your students in the database so that you don't have to enter them, let's say, up to 24 times. I do recommend that you fill all 10 spots here, and if you only were to use 8, you can say miscellaneous 1 and miscellaneous 2. It's convenient to have all of these things filled up, and most classrooms do divide up their day into 10 blocks. And here's where you would enter the teacher's name. And setup 2, you can see I've entered some data for the first student, student 1, and student 2. Here's Pollyanna. These are her increasing behaviors, and here are her decreasing behaviors. And for Will, we have 4 increasing and 2 decreasing behaviors. And I'll note here that there is no requirement to have anything in the decreasing behavior block or anything in the increasing behavior. You have any combination that you wish between increasing and decreasing behaviors, including 4 and 0 or 4 and 0 going this way. So you can have all increasing and no decreasing and vice versa. Any combination that you wish. Okay, so I've set up 2 students, and we'll just go ahead and use those. And you would, of course, keep going to the right using your scroll bar to move your page to the right, and it goes out 24 students wide. Alright, so these are our 2 students. Now, I'm going to show you how to print a data sheet, and then we're going to talk about actually entering the data into your computer. It's very convenient to provide these data sheets to teachers so that they don't need to be entering data into the computer. Of course, that's not a new idea, but it's very convenient to have these kinds of data sheets because it allows teachers and aides and anyone else that's in the classroom helping to participate in the data collection process. Now you'll note that there is nothing over here, and that's because Labor Day, which is 9/2, was not a school day, and so TPS knows that, and so it puts some blanks over here. And I just wanted to demonstrate that if there is no school day, it just puts a blank in there. Let's go ahead and let's make this for the week prior, which would be 8/19, so we can start from the very beginning of the school year. Now you'll note when I go to print this, you can print up to 24 students, but you may not have all 24, so you want to use this dialog box right here where you can tell, in this case I'm going to only print pages 1 to 2 because I only have 2 students that have been entered. Okay, and this is what it would look like. I know you can't read it, but you get the idea of it. So these are days, and what I've done is to put the academic blocks on both sides just to make it a little easier to see what to know what the academic block is when you go to some of the behaviors that are on the decreasing side. So you have your increasing behaviors and your decreasing behaviors for poly. Let's take a look at the opportunities for data entry. Now again, you won't be entering anything into this page here. In fact, if you try to enter a 1 in this area, it will say you can't do it. So it's just a way to keep teachers from making that very easy mistake, which is to think that the data entry is over here, when in fact the data entry is on a different tab. This is only for the data sheet. Let's look at the 3 options that are available. If you saw the behavior during arrival, let's say the first block arrival, and did Polly complete her work, you would enter with your pencil on this printed data sheet a 1 because she completed her work. If Polly does not complete her work, you'll just leave it blank. Unlike some of the other versions of TPS, this version, the 4x4, does not use zeros. TPS 4x4 uses blanks as zeros. And so that way, if there are no behaviors observed, you don't need to enter anything, which is a real time saver. Because you have 10 academic blocks and up to 8 possible behaviors to report, that's 80 keystrokes a day per student, which could be a lot. And so if the student had, for example here, no examples or did not exhibit any decreasing behaviors, you would not have to enter any data when you go to the data entry tab. You just leave it as a blank, which is a really convenient thing. However, if you did see the behavior, you will enter on your pencil and paper version of this, which is what you will get when you print it out, a 1. Okay? And that's all you have to do. You, let's say Polly during arrival used appropriate social behavior with her peers, you would have written a 1 on your data sheet. If she followed teacher's directions, you would enter a 1 right there, and so on. If she was verbally aggressive, you would put a 1 right there. If she was not physically aggressive, she did not elope and did not engage in self-injurious behavior, you would leave those areas blank. Okay? But you'll note that I have an N and an X also. And what you will be doing is using these to illustrate academic blocks in which a student did not have an opportunity to behave. Now, for the data sheet that you will be using right here when you print it out, and you'll be entering ones or leaving them blank, but you'll also be putting N's or X's. For this data sheet, the N's and the X's have the same function, but I'm going to show you when we go to the data entry why you would use an X or an N. But for right now, you could just put an N there and it will be fine. And what that means is there was no chance. So when you are collecting data for poly, if there was no miscellaneous academic block for the day, you would put an N in each of these blocks. Now I'm going to go ahead and enter an N here, and what that's going to illustrate is if I was going to handwrite them on the data sheet. But if I enter the N's here, when I print them out for the next week, they will be here. And so what that's saying to me is these are no chance blocks right now, and I'm not going to worry about collecting data for right here. It's a reminder. Okay, so this can get a little bit confusing because I'm entering some things onto the screen, but really all I'm entering is the N. I'm not going to enter any data. I'm not going to enter any ones on this page, either on the computer here or when I print it out. But I do need to have some way of saying there was no opportunity for that behavior. And this gives me a very convenient way to pre-install them, so that when I go to print that data sheet, they will be entered here, and if I were to do it here and here, they would be there as well, of course. So that way I'm not going to be collecting data for those academic blocks. And the reason for doing this will be clear in just a moment when I go to the data entry. So let's say I've collected a bunch of ones here and there for poly. I'm going to enter that information into the data sheet. So let's take a look at that, because that's, of course, excuse me, I'll hit this one right here, make it a little bit bigger. That's where all the magic occurs, because I need to enter data into Poly's data entry grid. Let's call it that, a data entry grid. Same instructions are up here. 1 for behavior, N for no chance, and X for not available. Okay, let's illustrate the differences between all these things. Obviously, I'm going to enter a 1 if Polly completed her work during arrival, and if she was appropriate with her peers, I would have entered a 1 there. And following teacher's directions, let's say she did that, I would enter a 1 there. If she was not verbally aggressive, physically aggressive, she did not elope or did not have self-injurious behavior, I would leave those blank. Okay? And so let's go ahead and enter some 1s in for Polly. Let's say that all of these behaviors were observed so far. Now let's say during centers, she didn't follow teacher's directions, she was socially appropriate, and she did not complete her work. I'd leave those blank. And during lunch, let's say she did complete her work, which was to finish her lunch. She wasn't appropriately social with her peers, and she did follow teacher's directions. And let's say she was, let's go over here and say she was verbally aggressive, okay? And let's say during math, she was perfect, and let's just enter some more data. Okay, now, what about those miscellaneous blocks? I said that we didn't have miscellaneous, and so if I don't enter an N or an X, then my percentage is going to use that as an opportunity. You see, I have entered 8 1s. I have a total of 10 blocks, so that's 80%, 8 divided by 10. But as I said before, I didn't have miscellaneous, and so I don't want to use miscellaneous in my calculations of percentages. So TPS provides a convenient way for you to do that. I'm going to show you the first way by entering an N in those blocks. Watch what happens. You see, the percentage goes up to 89, because what that says is there was no chance for miscellaneous today, and so I'm going to take it out of the percentage running. And I don't need to enter anything there because I could enter an N, it wouldn't affect anything, but it saves me a keystroke because over here there was no academic block, but there was over here in the decreasing behavior side, so I'm going to enter my N's there. Now, the N's take academic blocks out of the running for that day. But let's go to a 20. And let's start entering some data again. And just for convenience sake, I'm just going to populate these fields with some ones, and you can see the percentages below are changing accordingly. Alright? So now I am at 90% because I didn't have miscellaneous, and so it's counting that in my calculation. And what I'm going to do is use the next opportunity. Instead of no chance, which is just for the day, I'm going to use an X, which means not available, and not available going forward. So when I put an X in there, and I'm going to go ahead and put them for all of the available behaviors, and it turns it blue, which has the same function as the N. Both the N's and the X's do the same thing on a daily basis. It takes that academic block out of the running. But what it does change is going forward, the X stays. So on A21, I don't need to enter X's again. And on A22, I don't need to enter X's again. The X's stay until the time comes that I take them out. And so this is a convenient way of pre-configuring your academic blocks with opportunities or not. So here are my opportunities, here are my no opportunities. And so when I enter my counts, these are taken out of the calculation. And the reason that I made the N and the X, although it can be a little confusing, is once again, N's would be just for the day, and let's say there was some others that I would put here. Those N's take those academic blocks out of percentage calculations for the day. The X's do the same thing, but the X's stay put until the time comes that you take them out. So let's say on A21 I decided that I was going to have a miscellaneous academic block. I will just go ahead and delete them. And by deleting them, I change it for that day and all days going forward until the time comes that I was to put them back. And then, of course, going forward, they would return. And so it just depends on whether you want to show something is not available for today only, or today and all subsequent days. Okay, so that's the entering data. Now let's say for Polly, on A20, she was not going to centers anymore. Let's say that she's going to OT. Okay, so A20, Polly now is going to OT. When I go to my data sheet, you'll note that for Polly, it puts in that it was OT for that day. So it's a convenient thing to say that these academic blocks are linked to the academic blocks that you enter here. Now, same thing goes for Will. Let's say that Will has an entirely different schedule. And so after lunch, it's going to be on the job training, and maybe after that he's going to go to speech therapy, and so on. So I can change my academic blocks under the student's name at any time, and for that student the data sheet will have changed, and this way each student can have totally independent academic blocks. And of course, independent goals. So there's great flexibility with that. And of course, when we go to the data sheet and we looked at Will's data sheet, you can see that on 8/20, August 20th, he went to on-the-job training, and going forward, it will say that. Okay. All right. So we've entered some data, and what I'm going to do, just to make things a little bit to go a little bit more quickly, I'm going to enter some varying data here, not quite all. And let's put a couple of ends in there. Let's say there was no social academic block on that day, and let's go ahead and put our miscellaneous back. We're not going to use that for right now. We can put it there. It doesn't change. One would not be there. It doesn't change anything if there are no behaviors listed, so it's fine. And let's go ahead and let's say that Polly is not exactly the best student. We've got some physical aggression, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. Now, you would not be doing this. I'm doing that only to populate some of the academic, the data entry grids with some behavior. And let's skip over to September and put some data in there as well. Okay. Now, we have some data entered, and you'll note that there is a graph icon right here. This is very important. There are up to 24 student possibilities, and we have these graphs here. These graphs are like reports. Data only go to them when you ask the spreadsheet to send data to them. So the way that you do that is by clicking on the graph icon. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's click on the graph icon. So now data for Polly have been sent to all of the graphs. And when I enter data for Will and I click on Will's graph icon, then all of Will's data will go to all of the graphs. But for right now, since we only have data entered for Polly, I click on that graph icon and all of her data are sent to the graph, all 7 of these graphs. Let's take a look at that. So here is Polly. We have count per behavior per day, and it is exactly as it says, how many behaviors occurred. And of course, we entered this, we copied the same data, so there's not going to be any variation in it. The open circles here in red, but when you print them, they won't be red. So you can see the difference between the filled dots and the open circles. These are the inappropriate or decreasing behaviors. Okay, so that's count per day. And when you print that, it'll be printed on 2 pages, and it will look like this. Just a moment. All right, so your increasing behaviors and your decreasing behaviors. Let's look at the weekly count. Weekly count does a summary. It, of course, counts. It adds up all of the number of behaviors for the week and displays them in 4 increasing behaviors and 4 decreasing behaviors. All right. Decreasing behaviors are using this checkerboard pattern so that when you print it in black and white, you can see the difference between them very readily. And here we have MQY, month, quarterly, yearly count. And what that's going to do, let's go up to the top, is it's going to add up the number of behaviors for the month for the 3 behaviors that we're tracking on the increasing side and the 4 behaviors we're tracking for the decreasing side. We'll also add them up for the month going all the way across. So all 59 plus 73 plus 66 equals 198, and 15 plus 21 equals 36. And I can also add it up this way. So what's my yearly total so far? And the graph for these yearly totals, so these numbers here are going to be plotted on this graph, and all my numbers going this way, so all my monthly totals for each behavior are listed in these graphs. So here's August, here's September, and so forth. Of course, I only entered a little bit of data for September, so we don't have a full month yet. And my 4 increasing behaviors, my 3 increasing behaviors, and my 4 decreasing behaviors, and we did not record anything for eloped or self-injurious, so those are left blank for right now. And here's my quarterly summaries doing the same kind of thing. My behaviors listed across the top. Here is the quarter ending date, and it adds it up for the quarter and displays them accordingly. All right. Let's hop over the behavior per academic block, and let's go to daily percentage. It does the same kind of thing as count, but now it respects the academic blocks that I put an N or an X in, and removes those academic blocks from the computation. So if there was an N or an X, that academic block's not considered as to be a countable academic block, and the percentage will increase because the student won't be penalized for not behaving in an academic block where there was no opportunity. So it's a very convenient way of making your data very accurate. And we have a weekly percentage doing the same kind of thing, and we have each of the behaviors demonstrated right here, and month, quarterly, and yearly, same kind of display except now as percentages. Alright, and you go right down, see your quarterly percentages, very convenient. Alright. Now, this graph right here is a very special graph. Let's click on that. Looking at Pollyanna, count of appropriate and inappropriate behaviors per academic block. And what you can do is put a start date and a stop date for your analysis period. Let's just go ahead and put 9/3 so we can get a little bit more data in there, and you can see the graph adjusts accordingly. We don't have a 4th increasing behavior, so there's nothing showing there but a 0. And here we have data showing that we have not observed any of these behaviors for the time frame that we have specified up here. So let's see what this graph is showing. Of course, count is my vertical axis right here, and my academic blocks are listed right here. And these are my 4 increasing behaviors, and these are my 4 decreasing behaviors, except in this case I don't have a 4th one, so that is blank, and there are no data displayed right here on that dark blue. And the decreasing behaviors continue with this checkerboard pattern, so when you print it in black and white, it is you can conveniently see the difference between the two. So that is what it says, count of each of these behaviors. So completes work, and when you're looking at it on your computer, you could put your cursor over the bar, and it will tell you what the number is, and you can see what's going on. That we had a little bit of a problem in following directions in math and in social, and we have some inappropriate behavior here. Physical aggression during centers, and verbal aggression during centers, and also during language, and some problems with physical aggression during phys ed as well. Of course, you can look over here if you want. I find the graph to be easier way to see the trends here, but it's up to you. Here we have the same data, but now listed as a percentage. And you'll note that since we have not entered any data at all for miscellaneous, we put X's in the miscellaneous data entry tab for Anna. No data are listed here. So it's not a 0% because there's never been an opportunity. So it's left blank. All right, and these are the percentages. So we can see that on a percentage basis, Anna's having some problems completing her work in social skill area and in language as well. All right, so those are the 2 graphs that are available right here. And this is a very good way to show changes per week or per month or any days that you want to start and stop your calculation for. So right there, you can put any start date and any stop date. Okay, the final thing to show you is the home note, and here I had already entered 819. We can put 820 and it will show something else. Let's go back to 819 because we do have behaviors on the decreasing side a little bit at least. Let's see what this says here. So this home note date, these are my academic blocks, and where there is a star, an increase in behavior occurred. Where there is a gray box, gray rectangle, that means that there was an N or an X entered, so there was no opportunity for the behavior to occur. We had a little verbal aggression during lunch. And here is a count of my appropriate behavior. Here's the count of inappropriate behavior. And you have 3 different places you can put extra credit if you want. So let's say we got 4 points for good behavior on the PM bus the day before, and let's say 5 points for bringing homework in, or signing and returning the homework, and 5 points for doing the homework. So you have 37 points. You can type information here if you want. Just keep in mind when you save your data, which you want to do, you will have that be listed the next day. Anything that you put here, that you type here, will stay there until you change it. If you want to handwrite it, or after you print it, you can handwrite whatever you want in there. And in this case, instead of going that way as it does with data entry, this one goes down, and all of your students are listed below. Okay? So when you go to print it, if you were to print them, you can see why I did that. It's because of the formatting of this home note. It fits better when they're stacked on top of one another. And so I have 12 pages, and we have 2 per page, and you will, of course, just cut those in half and give them to corresponding students. Or if you just wanted to print the first 2 pages, or in this case we only have 2 students, they're both on the first page, so I'll print one page 1 to page 1. Okay? And if you want to email this note, what you would do is click on email, and you can see it now surrounds the home note with the dancing lines. So then when you go to Excel, when you go to Outlook, and you bring that up, which I'm going to do right now, and you go to a new email, what you'll do, you'll of course address it. You can put the subject, student Anna's data on 819, or whatever it is that you would like to say as your subject. When you go to paste, click down here so your options come up, and you want to print a picture, and that way it's a convenient photo that is embedded in the email. You don't need any special software to read that, as a parent won't. And you'll send it. I'm going to go ahead and just close that out, and we'll close this as well. When I want to do Will's data, we didn't enter any data for Will, but if I wanted to copy his data sheet, I would click on the email icon under Will's name, and now Will's home note is copied so that I can paste it as a picture. So you do this one at a time. All right. Okay, a couple of other things just to keep in mind. When you first load up TPS 4x4, you probably get a message that says that it has some macros, and do you want to enable them? The answer is yes. It's very important to enable the macros, or it will not operate properly. Okay? Keep in mind that we're only on the data entry going to be putting a 1 and leave it blank. There's no zeros. You can't enter a 0. It won't let you do that. And you use ends for academic blocks that were not available for the day, but if it's something that's going to be not available going forward, use the X, and that's a convenient thing. One thing that I did not mention, but I'm going to mention now, if you make some phase change, let's say there's a medication change or something else, programmatically change, you would type the words phase change. Okay, don't enter anything else on that line. Just enter the word phase change, and here you can say move seat or whatever you're going to do. You put that on the next line, and what that does, let's go to let's click on the graph icon again because things have changed, and let's look at we'll just put daily count, and you can see that it enters a vertical line showing the phase change. If you type phase change and then enter something else here, Excel will not see those keywords as phase change. So, and it doesn't matter which line you enter phase change on, you can put it down here, just don't put anything else on that line. Okay? Okay, that concludes at least this section of the training on TPS 4x4, 24 students. Once again, my name is Lewis Weber. If you wish to contact me, this is where you would do so. Thank you for your use of TPS 4x4, and I hope you find it to be successful and productive.